In this video, I will be showing you the most effective way to always win on a duo sloop in Sea of Thieves. Many of the things I will be talking about can also be applied to other boats in the game. So if you want to get win streaks like this,
nice.
Make sure you watch the whole video so you can learn how to increase the rate which you win fights. Good communication and knowing how you contribute to the team is the most important thing when playing with other people. So that is exactly what I will be talking about in this video. For starters, when playing on a duo sloop, you need to understand that there are two roles which you and your teammate must fill for you to fight effectively. These roles are the HELM, which is the person who controls the boat and keeps it operational, and the CANNONEER, which is the person who uses the cannons to keep pressure on the enemy as well as immobilize them. First, let's talk about the HELM. We will start with the basics of what you need to be doing, and then we will talk about what to do in more specific situations. As the HELM, you do not touch the cannons unless your cannoneer tells you to, is dead, or can't access the cannon because they are off the boat or grabbing supplies, and so on. You have a few different jobs as the HELM. One is to make sure your cannoneer has shots on the enemy boat. Another is to repair the boat as it takes damage, as well as bail the water out. You also have to keep your mast up and repaired, because if your mast falls down, it can screw you over. And last but not least, you need to make sure your wheel is repaired so you can keep an angle on the enemy boat. Now you're probably thinking that all of that is a lot for one person to do. You would be correct, because keeping an operational sloop isn't the easiest of a job. But let's talk about how you should prioritize all of these jobs as the HELM. Your main priority should be keeping an angle on the enemies for your cannoneer, because if you don't, you are making them unable to do their job. This should always come first, unless you are super close to sinking or unless your mast is about to fall down. Now that we know keeping an angle for your cannoneer is #1 priority, and that saving your boat from sinking with a quick bail and keeping your mast up are #2 priority, you're probably wondering, what do I do if I'm about to sink and my mast is falling down? This is when you need to communicate to your cannoneer and tell them they need to quickly bail the boat so you guys don't sink. Communication is key here. The reason the cannoneer should bail in this situation is because they are closer to bucket the water out, and because you are near HELM, you are closer to prevent the mast from falling down. If your cannoneer is dead or off the boat and unable to bail the water is the only time you should prioritize bailing over letting your mast go down. Because although it sucks that you have to let your mast fall down, having a boat that isn't sunk is the better option because there's still a chance to recover. And to prevent your mast from falling down in the first place, you should always repair it as it takes damage, unless it means that repairing it will lose your angle for your cannoneer, or that your boat will sink. The next priority in most cases is keeping the wheel repaired so you can keep cannon angle for your cannoneer at all times. And last priority is keeping the hull of the boat repaired, which may sound weird, but if you don't prioritize all the other things, you'll end up in a bad position with lots of holes anyway, which will get you sunk. The only time repairing the hull of the boat should be prioritized over repairing the wheel is if while your wheel is broken, you are still able to maintain cannon angles on the enemy boat. Then you can prioritize getting the hull repaired instead of the wheel so you don't have to deal with as much bailing. And the only time repairing the hull should be prioritized over quick water bails is if you don't have much damage on your boat and have enough time to repair holes without sinking. If you don't have enough time to repair and bail, that means you've taken way too much damage and haven't been actively keeping up with repairs. At that point, you and your cannoneer will both need to focus on bailing and repairing to prevent yourself from sinking until you alone can keep up. Repairs should be kept up with at any time you have free time as a HELM. If your cannoneer has angle on the enemy, if your mast isn't falling, and if you don't need to immediately repair your wheel, you should be getting repairs done instead of just sitting on the wheel. Making sure you are keeping up with repairs at any time possible will help prevent you from eventually getting overwhelmed and sinking. Now that we've talked about your jobs as a HELM and how to prioritize them, let's talk about how you should be communicating to your teammate as a HELM. In order for your cannoneer to hit good shots, they need to know the movement state of the boat. Knowing the movement state of the boat means knowing your wheel position and sail position. Anytime the HELM is either dropping the sails or raising the sails, they need to let the cannoneer know things such as raising the sails to half or dropping the sails fully, and so on. As well as doing this, they need to let their cannoneer know how much they've turned the wheel and in what direction so that the cannoneer can account for it, and also how much in intervals of 90 degrees it's turned, because a fully turned wheel on a sloop turns 360 degrees. Callouts for this would sound like wheel is 1/4 left or wheel is 3/4 right, and so on. Another thing the HELM should be communicating is if the cannoneer's shots are too high or too low, and if they're too far to the right or too far to the left. They should do this anytime they are above deck and near the wheel, because they have a higher elevation than the cannoneer and can see over some ways that the cannoneer cannot. Doing this will help the cannoneer better dial in their shots on the enemy. As well as communicating all this to the cannoneer, a HELM should also be communicating things such as when they themselves are away from the wheel, to do things such as repair or grab supplies, or maybe they got knocked off the boat. This needs to be done so the cannoneer can know if they might need to slightly adjust the wheel themselves to keep an angle because their HELM is busy. The last main things a HELM should be communicating are miscellaneous callouts. These callouts include things such as they themselves dying, so the cannoneer can potentially revive them. If an enemy is dead that maybe the cannoneer didn't notice, if their own mast is fully broken, if their wheel is broken, and if there's a person boarding trying to get on the boat and whether they have it covered or not. Speaking of dealing with enemy boarders, let's talk about what weapon loadout a sloop helm should use. As the sloop helm, you should be using the blunderbuss and sniper. Why? Because blunderbuss is good for dealing with enemy boarders as it can one-shot kill them and does good knockback to get them off your ladder. And the sniper is good for long range for trying to kill people on the enemy boat while your cannoneer is shooting cannons and you have nothing else to do. Now that you know what you should be doing during your average fight as a duo sloop HELM, you're probably wondering, what do I do to start the fights anyway? If you're not doing hourglass PvP and come across a random fight, try to engage the enemy by giving your cannoneer an angle on them, and then go from there. But if you are doing hourglass PvP, it gets a bit more complicated. Get ready for a lot of information. When doing hourglass PvP, you and your enemy spawn face to face. Before you even spawn in, you want to be ready by the wheel, so you can immediately start turning it 360 degrees to the right. But why to the right? There's actually more than one reason to turn to the right instead of the left. The first reason being that the left side of the sloop actually only can take 7 holes instead of 8 like on the right side. This means that because your left side is exposed to the enemy instead of the right, you are more likely to take less holes in your boat. The next reason is because of the positioning of the lower stairs on the sloop. The lower stairs are on the right side of the sloop and have a thin wall between them and the exterior of the boat, as compared to the left. This means if the enemy is on your right side, they can easily hit cannonballs near the stairs of your boat and do more damage and knockback to you while you are trying to bail water out from that area. This alone can get you more easily killed or unable to repair/bail. The last main reason to engage the enemy on the left side is because of the position of the cannonball barrels on the sloop. Because the barrels are on the left, it is much easier for the cannoneer to access them from there than if they were shooting from the right side. Now that you know why to turn right at the start of the fight and have the enemy on the left side of your boat, you're going to want to maintain a cannon angle for your cannoneer to do as much damage as possible while you try to snipe the enemy to potentially get a kill that gives you guys an advantage. Whoever gets a kill on their opponent, gets the opponent's mast down, or gets the most holes on their opponent will be in a winning position, meaning they have the advantage in the fight and need to capitalize on it. Now let's talk about what to do in different winning positions as the HELM. First, let's start with getting a kill on the enemy. If you and your teammate get a kill on an enemy, you need to make sure their teammate can't revive them. This means trying to snipe the other player to put pressure on them and making them unable to revive and potentially even killing the second player as well. If the enemy can't revive their teammate, they have to solo their boat for a while and in most cases will try to get away. This will leave an opening for your cannoneer to immobilize their boat. Now let's talk about the next winning position, which is getting the enemy's mast down. Whether your cannoneer was able to get the enemy's mast down without you guys needing to kill an enemy player, or got it down because you guys did, you are now in a winning position. Once your enemy's mast is fully broken, you and your teammate need to not let them repair it, and get it to fully draw. What you need to do as HELM in this situation is to raise your sails enough to where you are slowly moving, as well as turn your wheel in such a way that you will be circling the enemy. Doing this is called a death spin, and allows for your cannoneer to shoot cannons at the enemies trying to raise/repair their mast, as well as put holes in their boat. Once you're in a death spin, you need to let the boat pilot itself and circle around the enemy while you help your cannoneer by shooting sniper shots at the enemies trying to catch or repair the mast. Doing this will not only scare them off of catching or repairing the mast, but will also potentially even allow you to kill them, putting you and your teammate in a double winning position. If you manage to get your enemy's mast fully dropped from this, you are now in the best winning position possible and just need to maintain the death spin while you shoot sniper shots at your panicking enemies and as your cannoneer sinks them. Same as the other winning positions, when you are in a winning position where you have more holes on the enemy than they do on you, you need to shoot sniper shots at the enemies to put yourself in a better winning position, while also waiting for your cannoneer to get their mast fully broken. Now let's talk about neutral positions, meaning you and your enemy are both on an even playing field. For starters, if you are both fully repaired with no one on your team dead and both of your masts are up, you need to get yourself into a winning position by doing what I said in the winning position section of this video. But let's say you are in a neutral position where both you and your enemy have a dead player, and your cannoneer is the dead player. If you and your opponent are both sinking badly, you need to worry about repairing and bailing your boat while also trying to get your boat away from the enemy. But if you are both doing alright on repairs but both have a dead player, you need to solo the boat and take over the cannon to put yourself in a winning position by killing the last enemy with a combination of cannons and sniper shots. You can also get their mast fully broken and knocked, or put more holes into the enemy than they can in you. All of these will help put you in a winning position. Now let's say you are in a neutral position where both you and your enemy have your mast fully dropped. First thing you want to do is make sure you maintain cannon angle on the enemy boat, so your cannoneer can potentially put you in a winning position by getting kills on the enemy or by putting way more holes into them than you have in your own boat. After your cannoneer has angle on the enemy, if you aren't sinking very fast, you need to try to snipe the enemy to put yourself in a kill advantage winning position. But if you are sinking bad, you need to get some repairs done so you can be in a winning position by having less holes than the enemy. Once one or two of your enemies are dead, or they have so many holes that they need to panic save their boat, is when you need to get your mast back up, while your cannoneer keeps up the pressure. Once your mast is back up, you are now in a strong winning position and need to begin to death spin the enemy until they are sunk. But what if you are unable to do all this and find yourself in a losing position? A losing position is when you don't have cannon angle on the enemy, but they do on you. You or your teammate is dead, but the enemy has both players alive. Your mast is broken or knocked down, but the enemy's isn't, or there's more holes in your boat than there is in the enemy. Let's start with talking about what to do if the enemy is able to cannon you, but you can't cannon them back. If this is the case, obviously you need to get angle as fast as possible, but if you can't do that at all, because your wheel is completely broken, you will need to focus on getting the wheel repaired as fast as possible. But if you can't repair the wheel because the enemy is hitting it repeatedly, there are two things that need to be done. If your boat is pointed away from the enemy, you and your cannoneer need to both snipe the enemy to try and get a kill, so that you can have some pressure taken off of you and get things operational again. While doing all of this, you should also be trying to run away so that you can get your wheel repaired. And if your boat is pointing at the enemy, you need to harpoon a player, preferably the cannoneer, onto your boat and get a quick kill on them. You can also coordinate this with your cannoneer to get a guaranteed kill, unless of course HitReg decides to screw you over. Getting a kill is how you will help yourself get out of this situation, and if you can get 2, you are basically guaranteed to be able to get out of this situation. Now let's talk about what to do if you yourself are down a player. If the enemy has killed your teammate, you need to ask yourself, do I trust my cannon skills? And choose to solo the boat to get yourself in a neutral position or even a winning position, by getting the enemy's mast down, killing one of their players, or getting a ton of holes in them. Sometimes soloing is a good option depending on the state of the enemy boat, but it's high risk, high reward, so in most cases I would recommend trying to run away until your teammate comes back. Because if the enemy can't get cannons on you, you are now in a neutral position instead of a losing position. And neutral positions mean it will be a fair fight to try and get a winning position soon enough. Now what do you do as the helm if your mast is fully broken or has fallen down completely? If it's fully broken, try to keep it up at all costs, but don't risk putting yourself in a bad position to do so. If you can catch it and repair it, good on you. You are now back in the fight. But if the enemy keeps knocking it over and over while also keeping pressure on your cannoneer, you will need to try to turn the back of your boat to the enemy. This makes it harder for the enemy to kill you while you are repairing the mast, and also makes you able to quickly get away if you do get the mast operational. While you are doing this, tell your cannoneer to shoot at the enemy with a sniper to help slow their cannon fire and maybe even kill a player. If you aren't able to get out of this and your mast ends up fully falling down, you need to sync your movement with the enemy so you always have cannon angle on them. This will allow your cannoneer to return the pressure and potentially put you guys in a neutral or winning position by knocking down the enemy's mast, killing a player, or putting a ton of holes in them. As well as all this, doing this will also make most of the enemy's cannons hit one side of your boat, so you have to deal with a little less holes while trying to recover. While all this is going on, you need to be sending over sniper fire if your boat isn't badly damaged. And if it is badly damaged, you need to be getting repairs on the boat and should be repairing the holes that are on the opposite side of the boat than where the enemy is. Once you get yourself into a neutral position while your mast is down, try to get yourself into a winning position, and if you can get into a winning position, that is then your chance to get your mast back up and get going again. Don't worry about re-raising the mast until you are in a winning position. Prioritizing a fallen mast while in a neutral position will often get you put back into a losing position. While you are in a losing position, if your harpoon has angle on the enemy boat, you can also try to harpoon an enemy player to kill them and get you in a neutral position. Try to coordinate with your teammate to make sure the player dies if you are doing this while in a losing position, or else it could get you anchored or killed and put you in an even worse position than you already were in. It's a very risky play while in a losing position, so make sure if you're going to do it that you get a kill from it. If you ever end up in a very bad losing position where your mast is fully down and you're almost about to sink and so on, try to make it so the back of your boat is always facing the enemy by sinking the turn of the wheel so you take as little damage as possible, because back holes don't sink you as fast as lower deck ones. And then you can more easily get away once you are operational again. But if you're in an even worse losing position where your mast is down, you're almost sunk, and your wheel is broken so you can't even turn with the enemy, you and your cannoneer need to focus on bailing and repairing the boat while trying to target a specific enemy to snipe. In between the time that you have, you need to quickly try to both snipe them at the same time and kill them to help yourself out a little bit. Also try to kill the other player if they go to revive. This needs to be coordinated so the enemy has no time to heal. If you can do this, there's a good chance you can recover the boat and get yourself into not as bad of a losing position and potentially a neutral position. But if you don't get a kill in this kind of situation, I almost guarantee you will sink. And that's why you as a duo sloop helm need to utilize all the tips mentioned in this video so you don't end up in that position to begin with. Now that concludes the helm section of this video. So before you get into the cannoneer section of this video, make sure you drop a like on this video and subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed the video so far, as only 5% of you that watch my videos are actually subscribed to my channel at the moment, and it helps a lot if you do subscribe. Alright, now time to talk about what to do as the cannoneer. We will start with the basics of what you need to be doing as the cannoneer. Then we will talk about what to do in more specific situations. As the cannoneer, you do not touch the wheel or sails unless your helm tells you to, is dead, or can't access them because they are off the boat or grabbing supplies and so on. Your jobs as the cannoneer are to sink the enemy by putting holes in their boat, immobilizing the enemy boat, and killing enemies with cannonballs. Let's talk about how you should prioritize all these jobs as cannoneer. Your main priority should be immobilizing the enemy by getting their mast down, because this makes them a sitting duck unable to run away. As well, you should also prioritize killing the enemies so that it gives you an opportunity to immobilize them. Putting holes in enemies should only be prioritized once you have them immobilized. If you are unable to do any of these because your enemy has turned away to run and repair their boat, you need to try to shoot out of your cannon and board the enemy to get their anchor down. Then your helm can come over there and help you sink them. Now that you know your jobs as the cannoneer, let's talk about how you should be communicating to your teammate. The cannoneer doesn't need to give as many callouts as the helm, but they still need to give some to have a well-structured team. As cannoneer, you need to let your helm know where you're trying to hit the enemy's boat, whether you're trying to kill their cannoneer or helm, hit the enemy's wheel, get their mast down, or if you're aiming to get holes in the enemy. This all needs to be communicated so the helm knows how they should do their job. For instance, if you're about to fully break the enemy's mast, the helm needs to know this so they can slow down the boat and get ready to death spin the enemy. Another main thing you need to communicate is if at any point you're getting off the cannon to do things such as help your helm bail or repair. You also should tell them when you're getting back on the cannon so that they know that you aren't helping with bails or repairs, and that you're putting pressure on the enemy. If you're unable to put pressure on the enemy because you don't have an angle on them, then this also needs to be communicated to the helm so that they can get you an angle. The last main thing that needs to be communicated to the helm is if you are harpooning an enemy player onto the boat, so that your helm can react to having an enemy on the boat if you accidentally miss your shots on the enemy and don't kill them. Speaking of killing enemies, let's talk about what weapon loadout you should use as a cannoneer. As the sloop cannoneer, you should be using blunderbuss and sniper. Why? Because blunderbuss is good for one-shotting enemies that you harpoon onto your boat before they can react, and the sniper is good for long range and trying to kill people on the enemy boat while you don't have cannon angle. Now that we know what you should be doing during your average fight as a duo sloop cannoneer, you're probably wondering, what do I do to start the fights anyway? If you're not doing hourglass PvP and come across a random fight, wait for your helm to get you cannon angle and then go from there. But if you are doing hourglass PvP, then it gets a little bit more complicated. Before you even spawn in, you want to be ready by the sail's length adjustment. But why here and not the cannon? While your helm is starting to turn the boat, you immediately want to start raising the sails to half so you can turn nice and tight. Then you get on cannon and go from there. Your main goal as cannoneer at the beginning of a fight is to kill an enemy player with your cannonballs so that you can get an advantage. Then from there, try to hit the enemy's wheel with your cannon so they can't turn away to revive their dead teammate. Now they're forced to take this fight that you have a winning position in. If they try to revive their teammate, you need to try to kill the guy reviving with cannonballs, and if they don't try to revive, try to get the enemy's mast fully broken so you and your teammate can begin to death spin them. At the start of the fight, whoever gets a kill on the enemy, gets the enemy's mast down, or gets the most holes in the enemy will be in a winning position, meaning they have the advantage in the fight and need to capitalize on it. Now let's talk about what to do in these different winning positions as the cannoneer. Since we already talked about what to do if you kill an enemy, let's talk about getting the enemy's mast broken and down. To get the enemy's mast down, you will need to hit it with 2 chain shots, or 1 chain shot and 1 cannonball, or 3 cannonballs before it gets repaired. After you have the mast broken, you can't let them catch it from falling down, so you need to shoot shots towards the helm where you lower and raise the mast of the boat to knock the enemy away from it and hopefully get it to fall. If they do manage to catch it though, you are still in a winning position because they can't move, so now all you need to do is try to kill some people repairing the mast with cannonballs as well as hitting the mast with cannonballs to make it start falling again. While you are doing all this, you also need to start putting holes in the enemy's hull so they start sinking while unable to move. If you switch between putting holes in them and making them unable to repair their mast with cannonballs, eventually they will not be able to keep up and will have to let their mast fall. This will make them a sitting duck, and now all you need to do is put even more holes into them and kill their players until they sink. Now let's talk about neutral positions, meaning you and your enemy are on an even playing field. If you are both fully repaired with no one on your team dead and both of your masts up, you need to try to get yourself into a winning position by doing what I mentioned before. But let's say you're in a neutral position where you both have a dead player. They were unable to revive their teammate and you were unable to revive your helm. If this is the case, you need to temporarily become the helm and do exactly what I talk about at 8 minutes and 17 seconds through 8 minutes and 44 seconds in this video, which talks about soloing the boat as a helm. Now let's say you're in a position where both you and your enemy have your mast fully dropped. If you have cannon angle, you need to keep up the pressure and get yourself in a winning position by killing an enemy or putting way more holes in them than they have in you. If you don't have cannon angle and are facing away from the enemy, you need to shoot the enemy with your sniper and try to kill one of them to put you in a winning position. If you don't have cannon angle but are facing the enemy, then you need to harpoon an enemy onto your boat and kill them with your blunderbuss. Once you're in a kill advantage winning position but don't have a cannon angle, you should try to help your helm with maintenance to get the boat operational and death spinning the enemy. But what if you're unable to do this and find yourself in a losing position? A losing position is when you don't have cannon angle on the enemy but they do on you. You or your teammate is dead but the enemy has both players alive. Your mast is broken or knocked down but your enemy's isn't. Or there's more holes in your boat than there is in the enemy's. As I already talked about what you need to do if you don't have cannon angle on the enemy, we will talk about what to do if your teammate is dead but the enemy has both players alive. If this is the case, you need to temporarily become the helm and do what I explain at 10 minutes and 22 seconds through 10 minutes and 53 seconds in this video. Now what do you do if your mast is broken but the enemy's isn't? If you have cannon angle, you need to get yourself in a neutral position by either killing an enemy, knocking the enemy's mast down, or putting way more holes into them than they have in you. But if you don't have cannon angle, you will need to try to snipe and kill an enemy to put you in a winning position. Now let's talk about what to do if you're in a losing position where you have more holes in your own boat than the enemy boat does. In this situation, if you aren't sinking badly enough to where your helm can still keep up with repairs and bails, yet again you need to make it into a neutral position by using cannons to get the enemy's mast down, kill an enemy, or get more holes in the enemy than they have on you. But if your helm cannot keep up with repairs and bails, you need to assist them until you guys can get operational again. Now that concludes the video, so if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Also leave a comment letting me know if you have any further questions about this topic. You can also check out another one of my videos right here if you liked this 20 minutes of my content. You'll definitely like some more. You should also share this video with your teammates so you guys can become a good duo sloop combo. I'm also curious, which do you like more, being a cannoneer or being a helm? Let me know that down in the comments. Anyways, thanks for watching guys.